I need to have like a lightning bolt across my face. Because Jim and the holograms. All right, we're live. Are you all ready to do this?
I am.
Let's do this.
Okay, let's do this. Good afternoon. Today is Friday, February 14th, 2020, and we're about to talk about the near future of the iPhone, some stuff about Swift playgrounds on the Mac, and a whole lot more, because this is the iMore Show. And today on the iMore Show, we have Georgia Dow. She makes us feel good. She makes us feel less stressed. She is the head of anxiety-videos.com and is an expert therapist. Welcome, Georgia Dow.
Thank you. Wow, that was quite the. Now I'm going to have to up my game for the show.
You always make me feel good every time I talk to you on Friday, so you're doing just fine.
Awesome.
And also on this show today is no longer sad and blue Renee Ricci of Vector fame. Welcome to the show, Renee.
I just can't get over how you truly outrageous, truly outrageous.
You know, every year in Sacramento, the musicians get together and they put on this very big show, very long show. There's like 25 bands. It's a big ordeal, and I won't go into the details, but we do a theme every year. And this year's theme is actually soundtracks. And if I'd have thought about it, I would have picked Gem and the Holograms for the soundtrack so that I could show this off instead of I'm doing Footloose instead. So I have to wear a wig and hide my pink hair.
Yep. And Georgia's so misfits. We're gonna get her.
You need green hair.
I could do green hair.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I'd like green hair, but I could do green hair.
Renee, help me remember, what was the name of the guy? Like Jerica's boyfriend who was also cheating on her with Jem.
What?
Do you remember? I can't remember his name now. It's been a while since I watched it.
I don't know. I'm searching. I can't figure it out.
Yeah. I can't remember now either. I always thought that was the weirdest storyline, is that like she knows that it's her in both characters, but he doesn't know that. He's cheating on his girlfriend.
Is Lois Lane with Clark, or is she with Superman?
Yeah. Well, actually, Lois Lane never hooked up with Clark Kent. She just thought of him as the big loser. Is what?
They kind of went on a date.
Yeah, it depends which comic.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. It does depend on which comic.
Oh no, or was it that he wanted her to fall in love with? He wanted her to fall in love with Clark, but she only liked Superman.
Right, because she only liked the big tough guy. She didn't like the nerd, which kind of makes her not as cool to me. All right,
or imagine she hated Superman and she only wanted Clark Kent. She's like, that Superman's a jerk.
that would have been an interesting twist too. Yeah. Oh, Superman's such a bro. All right, let's talk about Apple, because I'm sure people are sick of us talking about cartoons and comic books. First thing, let's bring up the Swift playgrounds on Mac. Renee, you actually were lucky enough to speak with one of the senior director of education marketing, I think it was.
Yeah, Sharon O'Mara.
Yeah, and you did a Vector video, which everyone should hop over to YouTube right now and watch this video. It's really good, and having someone straight from Apple give some information about it is really impressive. Give us a little bit of insight on, why did Apple decide to put it on Mac instead of just keeping it on iPad?
I mean, there's a couple of things that are super exciting about this. One is that Apple has this ongoing commitment to education that I really love. And I mean, I know eventually, like any corporation, they just want people to buy more iPads and more Macs and, and all those things. But they spend millions and tens of millions of dollars evangelizing and marketing and supporting education in schools. And I've got to imagine that's more than they really need to do. It cuts into their bottom line to do it, but they really believe that first, that coding is an essential language that everyone needs to learn. Even if you don't end up being a coder, you just have to understand how it works, because so much of our future is going to be software. And also that it's part of accessibility, that, everyone should have access to the ability to code. And all of this stuff is just they build it so that, I'm going to digress for a minute, but I talked with Sarah Hellinger, she runs basically accessibility at Apple. And she's like, we spent a lot of time building accessibility features into the camera app. And it's not always intuitive, but it turns out people with low and no vision want to take selfies too, because even if they can't see them, they send them to their loved ones. And so we built the camera so that it would talk to them and say, your face is not in focus, your face is not in the middle, and you'll help them take it. And this is the same sort of thing, is they just want everybody to have access to this technology. And so what they did was they took the iPad app and they used Catalyst, which is their UI kit on the Mac technology, essentially wrapping up all the frameworks that run on the iPad and making them run on the Mac, because the Mac uses older frameworks, app kit frameworks. And I like that for a couple of reasons. One is it maintains a familiarity with it. So if you know how to use the iPad app, or you're going back and forth between them, or you have a mixed classroom where some people are on Macs, some people are on iPads, they can all follow the same directions. But also Catalyst has been controversial because the first waves of apps were just garbage. They were just utterly horrible, like the Home app and a bunch of those. And the second generation of apps like Podcast, they've been okay, but they're not like the best Mac apps ever, which they really should be because they come from Apple. And people were wondering how committed Apple was. But Swift Playgrounds for Mac is a huge investment on Apple's part in Catalyst. And I think it's just important to see it. Like, I think Apple always has to feel pain before a developer does. Like, no developer should ever be remember when Letterpress came out and no one had ever used Game Center that much because Apple doesn't make games, and that's horrible. No developer should ever be the first one to experience like massive frontline bugs. So I just think it's great that Apple is like, they're going to feel the same pain as developers, and that prompts them to prioritize and fix things better. So that's all my digression. But ultimately, it's just the ability to have this really intuitive, really easy, really friendly environment for kids of all ages to learn how to code. And the super exciting thing about having it on the Mac is it becomes like iMovie or like GarageBand, where you learn the basics and then you can go to Final Cut or Logic and become like a pro, like, top of the industry pro. You can have Swift Playgrounds first, then you can put it side by side with Xcode, cut and paste your actual code into Xcode. It'll syntax highlight and everything. And then eventually just go to Xcode and bring up Swift Playgrounds to do some visual prototyping when you want to. And it makes for that sort of continuous experience, that ability to just pick up this free piece of software, start using it, and become a real developer. And the thing I love the most, and Georgia will appreciate this because her kids have played around with Bitbox and other things, is this is the act. And like when we were kids, the computer science courses were garbage. They were like 10 years out of date. We were learning Fortran and Cobalt, which are great if you want to work in a bank, but like nothing else. Like if you want to work on old banking mainframes, but like nothing else. This is the same stuff that like 50 million apps or 500,000 apps, I forget the number, something like 500,000 apps in the App Store are built using this exact same code. So the kids aren't learning like a baby language or a fake language, or like, as much as Turtle Graphics was cute, no one was going to make an app in Turtle Graphics and Logo. They're learning the language that real developers are using to make real apps, and that makes it easier for them to one day make those apps. And that makes me super happy.
And that early adoption, once you, like any language learning, if you do that before the age of 14, your brain is so plastic to learning that. And learning a coding language is like learning a, spoken language. And so once you develop that, when your brain is really plastic and it's comfortable to you, and then it makes it easier to understand what's happening. And let's just say it, we need like for the robot apocalypse, we need to kind of understand how all these robots work. We know it's not going to be Siri, but still we need to know how these robots work. Not because, anyways, my talk on Siri has, she would be killing the wrong person. Like, let's just say it. It would always be the wrong house. But
you're not wrong.
No, but it makes kids be able to, use products that they can actually do things with, feel comfortable with it. My kids have used Swift Playgrounds. They've also done Bitsbox and other kind of coding languages, and they're fun, they're comfortable, they're easy to use. And then if they choose to go into programming later in their life, they'll feel really comfortable. But this is something that should be in every single school, period.
I think, and I think to be a little bit more skeptical, but have the same kind of opinion as you, it's also a great marketing way for Apple to capture the youth, because what better way to ensure that you have future brand loyalty than to start them out young with learning how to code on Mac and on iOS and stuff like that. That's not a bad thing, because, Mac and iOS is fantastic, but you're definitely going to get people, like young, they start out young and they learned on Mac. And even if they move on to other coding languages, they learned on Mac. And that's just going to be in the back of their brains that this is what I want to do. This is the product that I want to continue to work in. And there was a small period of time, maybe even a large period of time, depending on how much you think about time. So originally Mac was the creative device that creatives use, that, photographers and filmmakers and things like that use. Then Apple kind of lost it a little bit with creatives, and Microsoft was doing an amazing thing with desktop and laptop computers. And now I think we've kind of seen Apple come back to form when they're sort of remembering that the creatives are their core focus. And, that's why we see something like the Mac Pro, the improvements on the MacBook Pro, things like that. And by adding, Swift playgrounds on Mac, I think what we're seeing is them trying to capture that youth again of like, let's get those creatives as early as we can into, the Apple ecosystem so that they can become sheeple. What? I'm a sheeple. I'm not going to be afraid to admit that.
Say it. If you're going to indoctrinate, you have to indoctrinate early. It is the way that it works when, most people stay in the same pool that they've learned as children. That is the same with computers, technology, sports teams, religion. All of it, we rarely move out of our lane. So you're right, to set a lane quickly is smart marketing. I can't disagree, Lori.
And also, though, Swift is open source, and there's a lot of people besides Apple contributing to it, and it's being used in a lot of things beyond just Apple stuff now. But also, it's a very modern coding language, and Apple designed it horrifically, I thought at first, to be able to do everything from just do a simple script to build an entire operating system off of, which is like, if you're familiar with languages, that's just obscene. Like, most languages are very specific to what their intended purpose is, but it also means that if you understand Swift, I think you'd have a huge leg up in understanding everything from basic scripting languages to like classical object-oriented programming languages.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this is big, and I think Swift Playgrounds on Mac, I think, is a really great addition. I actually downloaded it, but I haven't opened it up and started playing around with it. Same thing happened on iPad, though. I downloaded it, I opened it, I did 2 lines of code. I felt intimidated. I closed it. Renee, I'm not even sure how you managed to learn coding language, because I didn't at all. Like, there was no computers in the school I went to at all. So, I missed that window of opportunity.
My dad was an IBM engineer, so I had an Apple II Plus in the house as a kid, and I learned BASIC. And that's back when pixels were like a centimeter like in size. Forget Retina displays. But I managed to code like a Starship Enterprise, just like scrolling across the screen, and I could press the space bar to shoot the phasers. But there was no way to build anything for it to do, like when those phasers hit. So all it would do was and you had to erase it by drawing black pixels behind it every time it moved. It was hilarious.
I still have happy thoughts of turtle graphics, I have to say.
You remember turtle graphics?
But Byte is not that different than turtle graphics. Like, you're teaching it to move in a certain way. It lets you do more. And I think and I'm by no means a coder. I went into design. I'm like, pixels, not bits, pixels, not bits. So I have a very very, very rudimentary understanding of it. But a cool Easter egg is, if you do some of the sound related courses, there may be some composers you're familiar with Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Ooh, interesting.
Doing some stuff to help the kids in there.
Which, by the way, speaking about Marvel, to update everybody that gave me so much trouble for not having watched all the Marvel movies, I have now watched Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So I am one movie further in my entire list of movies.
You're getting pretty up to date.
If I said, I'm Merritt Poppins, y'all, and he might have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy, you'd understand?
Yep, I get it. I get that reference now.
There.
I'm not gonna.
Don't they look good on Disney? Like, I was watching it because previously Disney wouldn't allow 4K or HDR versions, and now I'm watching the 4K HDR, and my God, are those movies beautifully shot?
It's so true. I find myself navigating or kind of moving toward Disney Plus a lot more often. I mean, I would do it anyway, but anytime they have those 4K things, those beautiful HDR stuff, it's just like, I really want to. I feel more immersed in the movie. And, you know, we spent a lot of money on our TVs. And so to have the technology actually look as good as our TV allows it to look is always really nice too. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it was
mean,
al-
if you, sorry, go ahead, George.
I was just going to say, I was always the person that said it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really, I don't really notice. But it's true once you've watched a few movies in 4K and then you downgrade, and your brain's like,
why is it so
oh,
fuzzy?
I can't, yeah. I can't really notice. So I do get the pull.
It's the HDR for me. Like I watched something like Infinity Wars is one of my favorite movies ever. And I've watched it over and over again. And I watched it for the first time on Disney Plus. And just like the deep blacks and the rich reds and the deep, deep greens and all those things, it was like watching a whole new movie. I think we're going to look back and say that, yes, going to 1080p was huge, but the next step wasn't 4K. The next step was HDR. Because it makes it look like the real world. Like I want to fall into it, Georgia, and live there.
Oh, I totally get that. I totally get that.
You might fall into it.
That
and then
baby
you break
Yoda
your
green,
phone
y'all.
with it.
That baby
It
Yoda
looks
green.
good enough that you can.
Yeah.
I agree.
So
Stephen Perry says it's fun to watch movies with Lori when she enjoys them for the first time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we could do an entire series of me watching these Marvel movies for the first time for sure. And I don't have positive things to say about every single one of them. Some of them I
That's the
just
fun thing. If you
don't
were only
like.
saying positive things, no one would want to watch. That would be the fun part.
Yeah. But I'm getting into the
Lori
good phase right now though. Like the movies are getting more fun again. I think I had mentioned before that there's you can actually like see the decade as Marvel went from the kind of the starting point of the way they made movies, and then there's this era where everything was epic and serious and it bored me to tears, and now they're moving back into like things being a little more fun and lighthearted, and so it's getting better
But
again.
some of those moments like ended me, like when Steve looks up and he goes, "He's my friend," and Tony says, "So was I." Those sort of things just
yeah. But you know, I roll my eyes a little bit at that stuff. So
yeah, I don't get there are certain moments that really I feel for because I'm like one of those super feelers, so I can cry on a dime. And then certain it's because like if you've read the comic books, like there were parts in the movie where people that have read the comics and really were the fans, you could hear them cheer. I won't say them so I don't give spoilers to those like Lori that have not yet seen them, but like you can hear them shout out and cheer, but it's just because I don't share that because it's not from my childhood or I haven't read the comic books, but my one of my sons and Renee were there. Like they got it because of they have a bigger history with this.
Well, there's also like some panels. Like, have you seen Civil War yet, Lori?
No, I have not seen.
Okay, I'm not going to say
wait. I think
Captain America: Civil War.
I think I did see. Was that one
with Spider-Man?
No, okay, no, I haven't seen that one yet. Yeah,
all right.
It's still it's not quite there yet. I'm not far enough in yet.
I just like the way that they build and the things that like if you do watch all of them, there's so many little payoffs. Like they didn't just ignore the fact that like you might have seen other movies.
Yeah,
there's huge payoffs later on. I won't tell you any more spoilers, but after you finish Endgame, we'll have a talk.
I have a box. I guess it's not there. I have a box of comics in my closet that. It's one whole box of comics that is the Civil War series. So I know Civil War. Yeah. That cost many hundreds of dollars to read that story. So it's going to be nice to see the movie just all in one hit instead of spending 6 months and buying 350 comics to get through it all.
The one thing that, and I'm sorry to everybody for keeping, I was just saying, the one thing that really bugs me is that some people had the comics for 50 years and in the movies they say, well, why can't Iron Man do this? And you're like, why couldn't he do this? For 50 years in the comics, they never thought about it. They get it in Hollywood for 2 minutes and suddenly they realize, oh yeah, he could also do this.
Yeah. There's no restrictions in movies. They can do anything.
Sorry, I digress.
Okay, so let's jump up real quick. Let's talk about. I know we've been talking about the new iPhone, the spring iPhone rumors, but I wanted to drop in that Totally, the case maker company, recently announced pre-orders for their iPhone SE 2 case, is what they're calling it. And they do this every year. They're always the first to announce a pre-order for a case. Way ahead of Apple actually announcing anything. That's, they always get a couple of good pre-orders in there. And they're a great company. They're not going to send you a bad case. If it turns out that, Apple never makes the phone, you're not going to have to pay for a case that doesn't have a phone for it.
That'd be so funny.
Yeah, I have this case and no phone to put in.
I have to stop ordering cases early. I have like 8 of them and no phones to put them in.
Yeah, but to me, when Totally announces a new case, it's almost the official. It's happening. So
Like
let's
one of the
just talk.
signs of the Apple apocalypse. It's like the phone is
Yeah,
coming.
yeah. There's sort of that dividing line of it's gone from just rumors to it's definitely happening. It's just a matter of when, where, and why. So
And when Tim Cook opened the third seal, they released the case design.
So do you think Totally is on point with the way they've designed the case, which basically is the iPhone 8 case? It pretty much, I think the camera lens,
It needs a bigger camera lens, yeah.
I think the one that they have is different than what just a standard iPhone 8 case looks like. But other than that, it looks about right to me. Let's click on it right now. I'm looking at it. So yeah, they're calling it the iPhone SE2 case, which in their defense, it doesn't matter what the name of the phone is going to be.
Right.
That's just for packaging, and they'll be able to change the packaging on that. I have a ton of boxes that say iPhone 9 because there was a time when case makers thought that the iPhone was going to be called an iPhone 9, and they knew more or less what the dimensions were going to be. They just didn't know what it was going to be called yet.
Yeah.
So, that just happens.
I'm still hoping for iPhone Mother of Dragons.
Yeah, I don't think you're getting that. They don't want to go into, a battle with a dragon.
George R. R. Martin, he'll take them.
No, I would go into a battle with a dragon with an iPhone. I feel like I could beat him with that.
You get some good shots before you're eaten. Yeah.
Maybe my phone, maybe he'll choke on my phone. But yeah, so yeah, we've got a new iPhone coming out, which Totally has dubbed the iPhone SE2. But Renee, you have reason to believe that it's an iPhone 9. You're kind of on board with the case being, with the phone being following Apple's iPhone numbering system, not the sort of low.
Can I just say, I don't like any of the names. Like, I think they're all bad. Like iPhone SE2 doesn't really make any sense because it's not like a linear successor. And also why just reuse the SE name? But then iPhone 9, it's fine because it comes after the iPhone 8, but people are going to think it's an older phone than it is because we're already on the iPhone 11 and they're going to it feels temporally old, which you can get away with when it is an older phone, like the iPhone 8 being sold for that much, but it'll still feel old. And then you can't call it an X anything. Like an XE would be cool, but it's not the X design. So you can't, the 10 design.
10,
you can't call it that.
Y?
Like, are you going to come up with other letters? And then what letters? Like, it's going to be the iPhone RT? Like, I just don't like, at what point is it just silly?
Yeah. And this is kind of a weird positioning in that we have like the 10R right now, which I have a feeling we'll probably lose by the end of this year if a new iPhone does come out in the spring. So, the design of this phone, the way it's rumored, it is not a 10R. It's not that design. It's more like the design of the 8. So, we're looking at a design that fits into the naming, to the numbering scheme of the 6, 7, and 8. But now that we have 9,
7, 11.
What's it gonna be after that? Will it turn in? It can't turn into the iPhone 10 because that already exists, unless they call it the number 10, and then we're really gonna be confused because we have the iPhone 10.
My brain will sit down and cry.
There's a point where it's a really hard thing, like nomenclature and what you're close, like already comfortable with, and then changing that can be really good and can be really bad.
Yeah.
So I think that it's an important thing what they name it, because a lot of people just want the newest iPhone.
Yeah.
So
and they need
something that will make people feel like that's what this is. It's not an older iPhone, but it doesn't have to be super powered. So you don't want them to think that it's going to be the super powered iPhone, and then you get angry people saying
and
that
they didn't. You don't want it to be like marketed or look or act like the cheap iPhone, because that's something I think we've talked about before, that Apple has not succeeded really at having a brand new cheap iPhone. That they're more successful just carrying on a phone that's a couple of years old. So maybe they'll just call it the iPhone 8 and just say it's the iPhone 8 with new internals. Maybe that will happen. They do that with the Mac.
Just the iPhone. Could they go just iPhone? Like, because the iPod Touch, they just dropped the numbers. Like, there's no, like, they don't even gen anything anymore. Well, I guess they technically, because you have to find out which one you have, but they could just call it iPhone.
Just iPhone?
I don't know. I don't like that, because remember what we had that with the new iPad, and then it was it became
But
such a
that's what they
mess.
do now. Like, they
Because the
don't
new
say iPod
iPhone was then
Pro
the old
3.
iPhone, and then they had to get rid of the new word.
Actually, Georgia, you're onto something. That's exactly what they do with the iPhone. They no longer are named by their generation number. They're named by their size. So it would be the 11-inch iPad Pro and the 12.9-inch iPad Pro and
But there's
the
3 of those, and like,
10.2-inch.
how do you tell them apart? Because there's the
Okay.
2015, 2017, and 2018
But what if we
12.9-inch
just
iPad
did
Pro.
that, Renee? What if we just called it by the year that it came out?
Which
The
I think
2020 iPhone, and
that's
So
then
the
it would
problem with
be
that
the
is that
X, the
the problem with that is that it
Y,
comes out in September, and then
SE.
3 months later it seems old. So you have
No,
to call
but
it the next year, like with cars.
okay, but you
Like,
could do that. The 2021 iPhone, and then the next one would be just be the 2022. Because
I
in
like
the
that
end, when
idea.
we talk about, at least with us, because we use the date for sometimes, and sometimes we use the product number. But there's some things that it becomes such a mess that you're just the one that came out in this year. So if iPhone, they weren't going to be coming out with a new version of iPhone every year, this could be a problem. But cars do it, and they do it very successfully, and it works out. And then people have certain models of car that they love that are really old. And so it doesn't feel old because it's not like it's the 5, but this is the 1957 iPhone, and this is a classic, and it works really great because of this.
the
I don't know.
classic 1957.
At
No,
some point, or they could
it's-
just call it by the year, just like 21.
yeah. So
Drop
Well,
20
Samsung did
because
that. Like,
Apple
Samsung
probably
just
won't
had their big
drive
event.
anymore.
Samsung just had their big event, and they announced all their new Galaxy phones. And instead of last year was the Galaxy S10, and then this year it would have been the Galaxy S11, but they
Mhm.
changed it to the Galaxy S20. And there's like 2 reasons. One is because 20 shows it's a significant upgrade, but also because it's 2020, and because they come out in the spring, that name's going to last for them like the whole year.
Right. So then Apple will be copying them, are you saying, and they won't do it?
No, I
because of
just think that I'm giving an example of someone doing exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do think that this could work. So think about the Mac lineup. So Apple will update a Mac, the Mac laptop or something like that every year. They don't call it MacBook Pro 12. They just say it's the new MacBook Pro, and we identify it by the year. So it's the 2019 MacBook Pro, the 2020 MacBook Pro. So I could definitely see just dropping the number, which Renee, you have actually brought that up before, and Apple so far hasn't done that. But if there's ever a time where Apple should start dropping that generation number system, it's now, because we have so many different generations that it's getting convoluted. Right now, currently, you can buy an iPhone 8, an iPhone 10R, and an iPhone 11 lineup. So that gets confusing. So what is the 10R compared to the 8? And what is the 8 compared
Doesn't
to the
it feel
11?
like the Super Bowl at some point where it's like iPhone VIIXLXX? You're like, what is it? What is that? Like, no, too
What
much
does it
mind
mean?
work.
Yeah. So if they were by the end of this year to just completely change the lineup to iPhone, which is what the 9 is, that's what we're talking about, 9. So that's iPhone. And then but then what about the iPhone 11? That leaves that one out in the dust. So because we need the Pro and the Pro Max.
The Air. So let's just call it the iPhone Air. We'll have the iPhone Pro, the iPhone, and the iPhone Air.
All
right.
right.
It'll be just like the Mac line.
And then they just call it by the date.
Yeah.
And with that, we're going to talk a little bit about learning, because learning is hard when you're trying to figure out how to name an iPhone. We're going to talk about LinkedIn learning. So my guess is you both have a LinkedIn account. I have a LinkedIn account. I've had one for many, many years. I would even say, Renee, I don't know for sure if you ever saw my LinkedIn account when I applied for a job at iMore, but that was the resume that I sent, was my LinkedIn account. And I
sure
said,
did.
If you want more, I can give you more, but here's my LinkedIn, because it's a really easy way to just share with everybody what your resume is and what you do for a living, what you've done for a living. I just love having it. I update it regularly when I get new, skills in and things like that. Well, LinkedIn also has this other thing that they offer that you may not have known about. It's called LinkedIn Learning. And it's basically a huge number of courses that will teach you how to do anything, teach you the basics, teach you some deep things, understanding things. You can do something like learn how to use Excel or learn how to use HTML. You can learn how to code. You can, there's different categories, business, technology, and creative. You can learn how to use Photoshop. This is all under one price, and it's good for individuals like you and me that just want to learn how to do something, but it's also good for companies. So LinkedIn notes that some businesses will just pay for a LinkedIn account for their team, for their employees. There is a pricing scale that allows for buying or paying for a LinkedIn subscription, LinkedIn Learning subscription service for your entire team. And that could be something like Renee at iMore. Only 3 people actually know how to use Photoshop, but maybe we all need to learn how to use Photoshop. I know I don't know how. So the team could pay for a LinkedIn Learning account, and then we could all have access and all learn how to use Photoshop. So it's good for individuals and it's good for teams. It's a really great way to kind of get into business specific stuff. One of the things that LinkedIn Learning specializes in, they have a lot of insights on businesses and how businesses work and what businesses mean. So these LinkedIn Learning courses are actually catered to and sort of built around the idea of not just how to learn Photoshop, but how to learn Photoshop very specific to this business environment. Like in our case, it would be, online publishing. So it could be something like Photoshop for online publishing. They build courses around that kind of thing so that you can really personalize what you need to learn. So if you are interested in it, you can go to linkedinlearning.com/iMore and sign up for a demo today. You get a 30-day free trial by going to linkedinlearning.com/iMore. Sign up for a demo now. Thank you, LinkedIn, for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. So let's quickly talk a little bit about the new Samsung devices. It's big, it's not big, it's all the things in between. Renee, when we actually had a little Discord chat, which it was really great to see a few of the iMore readers jump in with us and have a great conversation while the Samsung Unpacked event was happening. So Samsung announced its S20 line, which includes, I may forget, so help me if I'm wrong, the S20 Plus, and the S20 Ultra. Did I get that right?
Nailed it.
And my favorite actually was the Z Flip. So let's quickly talk about
the Z and Z Flip is literally because of Gen Z, and so I'm just calling it the Galaxy Flip. I just can't.
You're just over it.
I mean, Gen Z is like, oh, can you take our name out of that, please?
Nope. No. So I think I'm actually not a Gen Zer. I'm a, what am I? I'm Gen X, I guess. I'm a Gen Xer. Yeah. I love the flip phone. So we'll just jump right into it. Georgia, have you seen it yet? It doesn't fold lengthwise. It folds.
No.
It folds top to bottom.
I know, it's kind of cute. Like I loved my old flip phone. I really did. Like the old days where I was watching like X-Files and I'd be like, flip the phone. I'd be like, FBI. And I really did love it. So that brings me back some old feelings about that and kind of happiness. Like it looks like I like the idea of it. I really do. And I'm not like, I don't know. It just seems like it's just a cute little idea. It'll fit into your pocket again. Like it'll fit into like the little pocket.
Yes. I know.
So you can have a tiny again. I love the colors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I should hate it, and I don't. I really love it.
Yeah, I am exactly the same way as you. I've been just anti flip phone because mainly because they're just not ready for the public yet. But this compact flip phone, it reminds me of a compact that women carry around in their purse.
Yep.
it's small. You know, I like it small. You know, I want to be able to shove it in my pocket. That's a huge thing for me. I love that it's flips down into this tiny little size phone. It seems to be perfectly geared toward just having the average phone, and it flips open, it flips shut. I think I've mentioned this before. I think I've said to you, Renee, to me, this design, this is what the flip phone should be in the future. And this is the phone that I think will succeed in the future. I think younger people, I may be totally off the mark because I'm certainly not a young person anymore, but I think that this is the way that the phone is going to go. It's going to be hugely successful once it drops down in price a little bit, because people love that it's different, that it harkens back to that flip phone idea that you're talking about, while still being
screw the flip phones, the Game Boy. I mean, come on.
Yeah, a flip Game Boy.
True. You're right.
Yeah.
So there's just two things I want to say, like, because I want people to there's us, and then there's like the vast majority of regular people. And I just want to make two things clear. I really believe foldable phones are the future, because humans we fold everything. We fold our books, our wallets, we fold our tacos. We just fold everything. We're willing to sacrifice some, surface area for some depth in order to make it easier to carry around and to protect the stuff inside. I think that's great. Like Lori said, though, they are not ready yet. So there's two things I want to add. One is, if you are an influencer who typically gets 4 to 20 phones a year, and this is not going to be the only phone you depend on, and you make all your money back on it through deductions and content, that's great. Like, get all the flippable phones. But a lot of people watch us and them on YouTube and on the blogs being all excited because they are different, they are new, they are novel, and they don't realize it's not the one and only phone that we're going to buy and use for the next 3 to 5 years. Not at all. And it builds false, like almost like the Instagram problem, where everyone's life looks better than yours, even though they're not better. So if you are not an influencer and you're not going to get your money back on this, don't buy it. If you need a phone for 3 to 5 years, buy a phone that's not compromised. It doesn't have bad battery life, bad processor, worse screen technology, all those things. Yes, it's exciting, it's fresh, it's new, but just think about you in 3 years going, oh, the screen is shredded and the battery doesn't last and the hinge is broken and I hate past me.
Yeah.
One last thing. So the Samsung Fold, when it came out, it ended up having huge problems. When people saw the Motorola Razr, they loved it. And now the reviews are like, I'm sending mine back. So if you're a normal person, please don't buy it today. Wait until all the full reviews come out. Then wait 1 extra month. And then see what all these people who bought it have said. If they're still in love with it, go buy it. But if they're like, God, it's broken and it can't do this and I sent it back and I hate my life, wait for the next one and do the same thing again.
Which I think that you're absolutely right, Renee. I agree. This should not be, if you're it's not we don't know how stable this is going to be. We don't know about the screen. You're 100% right. You should not, if you're hoping to have something that is going to last you a really long time, probably getting a prototype, something that is new in the market, is not the smartest of ways to go. But I am so bloody excited for the next step in our technology, because this is how things change, is by having something, hopefully it goes gangbusters, because eventually then I'm getting my foldable phone. I love the colors. I'm hoping I get it in purple. It looks cute and adorable. I can carry it with me. And I'll say it, if Samsung can do it good, Apple can do it better. There we go. There's my fangirling. It's true. That is how I feel about it. I could be wrong. Send me hate to Appaholic at send all the hate
Wait a minute.
But I don't know. I love it. I absolutely think that it's very exciting for our way to use technology. And finally, we have something that's different, but I think that's going to be worthwhile different. So even if it is a complete disaster and it cracks eventually, they're going to keep working at it if people really love this idea. And no doubt people do, because they're going to spend money and they're sending this out as, a flagship phone. So
they're $1,500 right now. I mean,
so actually
I can't speak about really expensive phones.
No, but you're buying a really expensive phone that's probably going to that will last you several years if you get it.
Yeah, so that's
No.
actually that was going to be my next point about, step one, it's adorable. I love it. I really do think that this is the direction that foldable phones will go because it's really, really good looking. But it's $1,380 US. There is no way that this phone should be purchased by any average human right now. To me, it is a beta phone that's available to the public. So if you're an influencer, if you're a tech person, you buy this phone, you run it through its paces, you make sure it's good enough, or if it's bad, you make sure that Samsung knows that it's bad, so that 2-3 years down the road, Samsung and everybody else that's making foldable phones, they know what went wrong and they know how to fix it. Because just like you're saying, Renee, nobody should be buying this phone that isn't like in the industry and whose sole point is to talk about this kind of product. Because
Like if you're the dude who bought 3 gold Apple Watches for your dog, I mean, you do you. But everyone else, I feel like they need some consumer advice. You didn't buy 4 because that would be ostentatious.
And when you talk about the spec comparison, so let's unfold the Z Flip and just turn it into a regular phone, a regular smartphone, and then compare it to Samsung's S20 line.
Yeah.
It's like 4 years old technology comparatively, but is as expensive as their most expensive flagship phone, their most expensive high quality phone. It doesn't have all the amazing photography features that the Samsung S20 line has. It doesn't have the same megapixel, this and that, the same, high quality screen, the same. It's actually and we're talking about the price here. If this came in at $500, $600, then yeah, everybody should buy it. But at almost $1,500, it's a low spec wise, it's a low quality phone in an advanced form factor. So again, Renee, just like you're saying, it's definitely not for the everyman. It's really, in my opinion, the high price that they gave it was meant to only be bought by people who don't care about money, or people who do care about technology and are willing to put out that kind of money to see if this
They're
is
for
worth
people
it.
like me who, like, instead of watch bands, and by the way, this is my new watch band.
That's a gorgeous watch band.
It was only available at Apple Park, and I had a friend of ours send it to me.
That's the new Hermes, right?
Yeah, the
Look at
Hermes
that.
Deep Blue.
I love that little stud spike on there, pyramid spike.
That's for people that want to touch your watch. You just smash them.
It's very punk rock of you.
This is the fastest way that Apple has ever found to separate me from money. But like I admit that. But the folding phones is the fastest way they found to separate a lot of tech nerds from their money. And like, that's great. Like, if you can identify a super premium segment of the market and you're not going to make that many, you targeted the perfect customer.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. But then so quickly, let's talk again. I don't want to spend too much time on Samsung stuff. It was really the foldable phone that I was really excited about. But Renee, talk about what you think about Samsung's fancy new camera features and 100x zoom. I have some meh opinions about it, but I want to hear what you have to say to see how that compares to what I think of this stuff.
So I'm going to recommend, I had a chance to sit down with a friend of ours, Daniel Bader, and he did a real deep dive with me on a lot of this stuff, and he's super smart. So like, I'll just recommend checking out that video. But there's a couple of things. One is there's different approaches to the camera world. I used to joke about this, that Google had no idea what any hardware anybody was using, so they would suck up everything and do it on the server. And Nokia had no software skills, so they would just put like enormous lenses on their cameras and try to do everything in the glass. And Apple was really good at making processors, so they did everything with the image signal processor. And that was sort of like how old phones were. But now we're in a much more advanced time. But I think Samsung has recognized that, much like Huawei, they just don't have the silicon and machine learning to compete with Apple and Google. They just can't do it all in post. So they're taking a very Huawei tactic, and that is putting giant freaking cameras. Like, they even have a version of Huawei's periscope lens where, because there's no depth to put the camera in, they literally fold it and put it flat on the back of the camera and use prisms so that the camera would stick out an inch, but instead it's an inch inside the camera, and they're just using prisms to get that huge zoom. But I love this stuff. I love the fact that they're doing like really good 10x optical zoom, and Google's doing really good machine learning zoom. And I want like the next thing I want Apple to tackle, because they've got night mode, night mode is handled now. I want them to get in on this super zoom stuff, because it's one of those things that traditional cameras still do better. And I don't want to have to pull out a traditional camera. Like if my godkids are playing soccer or something, I don't want to have to get like a giant lens and say, oh, trying to take I just want my phone to take really good zoom photos. So I would love to see what an Apple or Google's problem is that they put crappy optics in. Like they're so good at machine learning and artificial intelligence, they don't bother with the hardware. Apple's sort of in the middle. So I would love for them to get really, I don't think they need 108. So what Samsung's doing is they have on the Ultra only, they have 108 megapixel camera. Most of the time they're combining 9 pixels together. It's called pixel binning, and averaging them out. So they get, like, instead of those 9 really small pixels, they get one beefy, tasty pixel out of it. And that's, Apple's doing all that in the image signal processor for now. But I would love if Apple, whether they do it with better glass, because they are putting better and better glass in their phones, or they do it with better machine learning like Google's doing, where basically they're using your handshake to get different versions of the image, comparing them very quickly, and then smashing them down into one good image. I'd love to see that on the next iPhone. 8K is okay. Like as someone who does video for a living, 8K to me just means I can shrink it down to really good 4K, or I can crop it to really good 4K. But my biggest concern with Samsung is 2 things. One, during the video, they said that when Apple does a presentation, those photos, they're very careful to say those are exactly off the camera. No editing done. Someone took those photos and they're putting them up on screen. Nothing. Samsung at the bottom, if you use that super zoom and you were there, you would see that it said that those images have been post-processed, which means I don't know what they actually look like coming off the camera. And also, they only talked about megapixels. And that's only one of like a dozen things that are super important. Like you want to know about the megapixels, yes, but also the chromatic aberration, also the distortion. There's all these things that the color science, the color management. When Apple does these things, and I laugh at them for saying like deep trenched isolation or DCI-P3 pipeline. I'm laughing at them for like using buzzwords, but that stuff is critically important to how good that is. And for the video, the bitrate, like low bitrate 4K is absolute garbage. You're way better off with high bitrate 1080p. High bitrate 1080p is way better looking than low bitrate 4K. And I'm afraid that they don't have the processing power for 8K. So it's going to be like really low bitrate, really poorly color managed. When you change scenarios, it's going to go black or dark. Like I need to know all those things, because to me now it's just like, oh, I've got a big spec. Look at how big my spec is, everybody. Sorry, I ranted.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was hoping to hear. You and I didn't actually have a chance to talk deep about what we thought of that. But it did feel like they were intentionally leaving some information out. They were doing a lot of, here's this great thing you can do, but you can only do it this way. Like you can make 8K video, but you can only share it 4K unless you're sharing it with somebody else who has this exact same phone, or the Samsung.
Unless you 5G it to your 8K TV.
Yeah. So it was like, here's this really amazing thing that you can't actually really do with it. So I felt a little bit kind of deflated by the technology that they were announcing, but also it's like it's kind of shackled, and we're not able to really use it at this time. So,
or just tell me, like, maybe it's great. I just don't. I watched your event and I don't know. Not a clue. Still don't know.
Yeah, still don't know. Still can't tell what this means. What we're looking at in the future. Georgia, did you see this? Do you care about the S20? Are you interested? Should we move on to something else? We don't have a whole lot of time left, but
yeah, probably.
Okay. Before we move on, I'll tell you a little bit about Netgear. We do have one more sponsor for this week's episode. Thank you, Netgear. They actually have a Netgear Orbi Wi-Fi 6 router that will make your Wi-Fi feel new again. So here we go. Is your Wi-Fi feeling old? Does it buffer while streaming? Does connecting new devices slow it down? Can it handle gaming, video calls, large file transfers? What happens when you try to do that all at once? What happens when you try to use an 8K video and upload it to YouTube, for example? It doesn't matter how fast your internet connection is if your Wi-Fi router is old and outdated. With Orbi Wi-Fi 6 from Netgear, your Wi-Fi will feel new again. Wi-Fi 6 is the latest technology that allows more devices to connect and stream simultaneously without impacting speed or reliability. The result delivers the fastest Wi-Fi for all of your devices anywhere in your home. You can stream HD, 4K, or even 8K without buffering, eliminating lag while gaming, and connect more devices to your Wi-Fi than ever before. Orbi Wi-Fi 6 is like upgrading your Wi-Fi to first class. If you're ready for the best Wi-Fi ever, you can get it today from Netgear and never worry about Wi-Fi again. If you're ready for Netgear's best Wi-Fi ever, you can get it today from Netgear and never have to worry about Wi-Fi again. You can go to your local Best Buy or netgear.com/best Wi-Fi. Thank you again to Netgear for being this week's sponsor of the iMore show. So let's see real quick. How about the fact that Apple has been ordered to pay employees for the time that they spend getting their bag searched? This only happened in California. It's a recent order that was mandated to Apple because in some circumstances, in some of their offices and some of their retail stores, employees have to have their bags checked before they leave. That seems logical. You want to make sure that, number one, people aren't stealing things. Number two, people aren't stealing secrets. So I've actually talked to people that have had to do this in the past, and sometimes they have to wait up to 20 minutes after their shift ends to get their bags checked before they can actually leave. And they're not getting paid for that. In this case with Apple, they were not getting paid for that.
Some said 45 minutes.
I think, it kind of depends on which store you're at, how many people are leaving at the same time as you. In California, that's part of the law, is that if you are working, that you have to be getting paid for the time that you're working. And even though they are leaving the store, they are mandated to stay in that store and have their bag checked. So therefore, that's still on the clock, even though their shift has ended. So, what do you think? Is this good? Is this kind of like overstepping?
That's my thing. No, like if I can't leave, like as long as I'm on your time, you're paying me. The minute I'm on my time, you're not. So either I get to leave, or if I don't get to leave, you get to pay me. It's simple to me.
Yeah. Well, what about, couldn't they just let me leave 20 minutes early so that I can get my bag checked?
Their answer was that if people didn't want to go through this, they could just not bring a bag. And I'm like, true. But if I bring a bag and you want to look at it, you still got to pay me.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely, like, there are people that are going to be breastfeeding mothers. They have to bring their pump. Women have a lot of different things. People are going to be bringing, their all of their workbooks, the things that are with it. It is a ridiculous question when you're bringing maybe lunch, maybe things that you need to work on, maybe another pair of shoes. It's an absolute ridiculous idea that you cannot bring a bag in and then now I have to pay it. If our society was a bag-free society and no one ever used bags, this would be a very valid point. But this is something that everyone carries a purse. Many men carry a bag or a backpack with them to bring their things. This is already an acceptable way of dealing with society. If Apple wants to search, go for it. But you're absolutely right, Lori. Either they let you off an extra amount of time or the next day, or they give you that time as vacation time later. But if you are mandated by a work to do something for the work, whether it be at home, answering phone calls or emails, or when you're there work hours, it should be paid. Any time that you are answering an email from work and they expect that should be paid time. So yeah, I'm good on California to do this, and we need this to be adopted all over the place because these large corporations and small corporations and small businesses are taking advantage of the common workers as they go through just trying to make ends meet, and it's absolutely ridiculous. People are getting expected to do more and more things outside of their own time, And now it's just expected to be, oh, we expect people to do overtime that's not paid. Everyone else does it. I'm sorry. It's absolutely ridiculous. And companies will take whatever they can take from people, all of them. I'm not calling out just Apple on this. This is any single company, a mom and pop company, just as it is a large corporation. And it sets a new precedent. And precedent's really important. And people need to stand up and say, no, you know what? My lunchtime is an hour. I'm not getting paid. Don't go back to your desk until that hour is up. I am sorry. If you're not getting paid for it, that means you're cutting into your own amount of time per hour that you are making. Go to your car, do a walk, do nothing. People feeling like, well, then I have more work to do the next day. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm ranting. I'll stop.
It's good. No, it's very good.
Sorry,
And
Georgia, do you have feelings about this?
and I think you make a good point, which is that this shouldn't be only in California, that all states, all countries should be making sure that you, even if it's 5 minutes, that, you should not be clocking out until after you walk through that.
Or like
that
Georgia said, let them go, or I
room.
forgot, maybe you, like, let them go early. Like if you want this and you want to pay them extra, just say everyone has to start the process half an hour before they leave.
Yeah. Just make that work. Make sure that they're getting paid for that. So what about, did you hear about the person who lost his AirPods Pro, went and bought a new one, ordered a new one, a single one from Apple, got a replacement, then found it in a bag of potato chips.
Yeah. been snacking, been caught snacking, and the AirPod decided to go snacking.
Have either of you just been wearing your AirPods or AirPods Pro and they just kind of pop out and for a minute you're just like, I don't know where it is. I can't find it. Has that happened?
I just start playing music loud from it, and then I'm able to find it.
But would you not know if yours fell out, I think is what Lori's asking.
I do, but I think so. The only thing I can imagine, because when it falls out, but you can't find it and you give up. You're like, I don't know, maybe the dog ate it. The dog ate it. I'm not getting it. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what goes through people's minds. I would know that it fell out, and I would probably find it in the chips. But if I couldn't, I would just turn it up real loud. I found it in the snow that way, and my chips would be singing, and then I go to my chips and say, give me back my AirPod.
Yeah, that's actually a really great suggestion. If anybody loses their AirPods in their chips, that's how you find them. Just turn up the volume as loud as possible, and you will hopefully find them. Hopefully the battery hasn't died on it, and you can turn it up loud enough and find it in your cupboard, in your snack cupboard. What's that noise coming from the snack cupboard?
And I play
why
like
are my
Little John
snacks?
too.
They
like,
really are calling me to eat them.
Okay. What? And why are my chips? Yeah. Okay. What?
Yeah, you have to play like something that really has a loud sound to it too. Something where someone's yelling, or maybe there's some heavy metal going on or something like that. And I know that Renee and Georgia, you probably don't even get to have fun with this, but Apple Card now allows you to export your OFX file, or actually export your transactions as an OFX file. For those of you,
is that some millennial swear word?
it could be. It could be. For anybody who uses third-party finance apps like Mint or Quicken, or you need a budget, these are very popular finance apps. I use Mint. I think it's great. It helps me keep a budget. It helps me recognize how much money I've been saving versus how much money I've been spending, what my credit score is, things like that. So I could not send my Apple Card transactions to Mint because there isn't, first of all, Apple Card doesn't allow you just to connect it like a bank. So people were manually exporting these transactions into their finance apps. About a month ago, Apple announced that it was going to start allowing you to send a CSV file, separated values file, which is great, but most of the third-party finance apps don't actually support CSVs. There's a few that do, but not very many. So thankfully, about not even a week ago now, Apple added support for OFX, which they said that they were going to do. They just hadn't kind of gotten it up to speed yet. So they did just finally announce that. So if you have an Apple Card, if you use a third-party finance app and it only supports OFX, guess what? Now you can export it. And then you just import it right into your finance app. It populates alongside all of the other credit cards and bank cards that you have so that you can kind of keep track of those transactions, put them into your budgets for how much you can spend here and there. For somebody like me, I actually use my Apple Card almost exclusively now. I don't use my bank card anymore. I just use the Apple Card to pay for my groceries, to pay for dinners and things like that. Anywhere Apple Card is available, I'm using my Apple Card to take care of that. So being able to have my transactions show me how much money I'm spending on groceries versus going out to dinner versus gas and things like that. It's really, really nice to have that in there.
I'm not jealous. Totally not jealous. No.
Renee wants to know what an Apple Card is, but Rory, do you find that helps you budget, make sure that you are, on point, you're not spending more in different categories, and do you look at that?
So I mean, we can have a different episode where we talk about budgeting and what budget apps help do. But yes, that's exactly what it does. When I look at my monthly, I set a budget for how much money I want to be spending on, let's say, going out to dinner. And when I check my finance app, if I notice that I'm getting pretty close to my limit for that month, I'll think twice before I go out to dinner. If I'm underspending somewhere else, then I might think, okay, well, I can adjust this month and that's okay. But it helps me stay on track. It helps me make sure that I'm not spending too much money on things that I shouldn't. And what it always comes down to for me is like, when I check it, I make that decision. Did I already spend enough money this month on, fun gadgets or on going out to the movies or going out to dinner? Should I take a break? Should I stop? Because we don't have to spend money all the time. So this helps me kind of budget it out for the month and make sure that I'm, saving money and not spending money. So
you're saying words, I just don't understand them.
Well, now that's finance in general. That's not Apple Card specific.
It's like I'm going into a phasic state, and it's just like.
All right, we won't talk about it.
Rory, we'll do a full show on
intervention.
On that. Yeah.
And just
you have enough video lights, Renee.
Yeah, Renee, you've probably spent enough on your lighting budget this month for sure.
Oh yeah, probably gone through that.
Okay, so we are basically down to the end of the hour, so it's time for us to say goodbye to all our company. MICKEYMOUSE. Am I going to get in trouble for that?
I heard in my head.
Oh God!
I did. I went there.
Now I'm massive.
We might have to cut that out.
No, it's fine.
We're going to get sued.
I sang Gem and the Holograms for a good 27 minutes, so we should.
Yeah, well,
I don't think
that's
there's
true.
anyone that is going to be watching that will have that worked for Gem or owns any copy. I think we're safe on that one. Disney, on the other hand.
Thank you for dooming us, Georgia.
Sorry.
Georgia, if people want to talk to you about Gem and the Holograms, about foldable phones, about anything they want, where can they find you on the internet webs?
Okay, so I am kind of on Twitter at Georgia_Dow, and if not, you can check out anxiety-videos.com.
Anxiety-videos.com. What's a video that I should be looking for right now? I'm feeling a little bit stressed about my work. I won't tell you why, but there's some work things that are stressing me out a little bit. What's a good video for me to check out?
Okay, so I will give you my two favorite videos. So one is just the basic one where it's just anxiety session 1. It just goes through basic anxiety management. And then the other one that's really good, and for most people, it's the boundaries and consequences, because in work environments, you really do have to make sure that you are setting really healthy boundaries and consequences to that so that you do not end up being taken advantage of and then get stuck inside of kind of the work mill where you're forgetting about yourself. Because if you will give it, they will take it, and then that's what they expect from you. So boundaries and consequences, it's good for life, home, work, all of it. One of my favorite videos.
Excellent. So everybody who works at an Apple store should probably check that one out too.
Oh, it helps, yeah. And leave it in your bag so they can find it when they're searching.
Have it playing on your iPhone in your bag.
And you say no to them.
Renee, yeah. Where is Vector? How can I find Vector?
You can find Vector in a number of places. You can go to imore.com/Vector for all the words and podcasts and videos. And if you want just the videos, you can go to youtube.com/Vector. And I'm at Renee Ritchie on all the social things.
And I highly recommend that you check out all of Renee's Vector videos. I guarantee you are going to learn something new every single time. I watch his videos every day that he puts them out, and they're pretty much every day. Maybe he takes a break every once in a while, but I think it's not actually taking breaks. I think he's just taking more time to make the video. So he's up all night, early in the morning. He sends them to me every time they get published, and I always love watching them. Pretty much every morning I wake up to a video from Renee, and I watch it. It's like, it's my morning routine. It's something that I do every morning, and it's great. It's
Thank you
so
much.
fun. So I am so much smarter about Apple stuff in general just from watching your Vector video. So great job
I really
there.
appreciate that.
And if you want to talk to me about foldable phones or about the Marvel movies and which ones I should see next, you can find me at Appleholik on Twitter. That's APPAHOLIK. And you can also find me at Lori Gill at most of the other social things, though not all of them. I don't social that much, so Twitter is probably the best place. And I'd like to thank all of our listeners who joined us live today. We had 29 people in our live stream today, which is great. We're usually about half that. So it was great to see everybody hop in and chat with us and have some talking. We didn't get to talk about everything that everybody says, but we're reading everything. We're reading all of your joys about Apple Card and all of your Samsung phone things. It's been really great, really fun. So thank you for doing that. We podcast live every Friday. It's usually at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Sometimes it's a little earlier, like today it was 12:30 Eastern. Sometimes it's a little bit later. But if you check us out on Twitter, iMore.com, or sorry, if you check out iMore on Twitter, we send out a notice every time about a minute or 2, 3 minutes before we start the show, hashtag iMore show. So you can kind of find out for sure what time we're going to be doing it then, or you could just pop onto our live stream on YouTube and find out when we're going to start. And thanks to Jim Metzendorf, because once again, he makes everything sound so good and makes us sound great, makes us look great. I guess he's doing just audio, so he's not making us look great. We're doing that ourselves. But thank you, Jim, for everything that you do. We literally couldn't be what we are without you. And thanks again for listening. Have a great weekend or week, depending on when you're listening to this. This has been the iMore Show. Thank you.
Ending.